My name is Rory Houlihan. I ran for U.S. Senate in 2016 and for Kentucky House, spring of 2018, and currently for Kentucky House. My goal, as always, is to stop the ticking time bombs and put our economy on track for a bright new day instead of all things ending. Let me educate you on the ticking time bombs and give you the rest of the story. Part 4A, John's. Jesus' Principles of Leadership. Before I get going, I'd like to thank Dr. King for these scriptures and Todd Rader for the postscript. Why do I pick John chapter 6, verses 1 through 15, to talk about what it takes to be a great leader? Let me tell you why. Let's first read John chapters 6, 1 through 14. Okay, 1. After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great multitude followed him, because they saw his miracles, which he did on them that were diseased. And Jesus went up into the mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. And the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was nigh. When Jesus lifted up his eyes and saw a great company come unto him, he saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread, that these may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Peter's brother, said unto him, There is a lad here with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes. But what are they amongst so many? And Jesus said, Make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down, in number about 5,000. You might reference Mark 6:39 and Matthew 14:21. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and his disciples to them that were set down, and likewise the fishes, as much as they would eat. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. There they gathered them together, and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that which the people had eaten. Then those men, when they had seen the miracle said that Jesus just did, said, This is a truth that the prophet that should come into the world. Okay, let's go through. Verse 1 tells us where Jesus was, at the beaches off of the Sea of Galilee. And John makes sure that we know where, by including the Roman name, the Sea of Tiberias. So, location is important. Verse 2 tells us that Jesus has achieved rock star status and is followed by a multitude of folks, because Jesus is curing the sick and doing miracles. Verses 3 and 4 tells us Jesus tries to leave the multitudes and go to a quiet place up the mountain to spend Passover with his disciples. Verses 5, when Jesus lifted his eyes and saw the great company come on to him. Here we get the first principle of being a great leader. Leaders have their eyes focused off themselves and on others. The reason why Jesus sees the crowd coming, the problem first is that if you have your eyes off yourself, you will naturally see the problems first. Jesus saw the problem well before any of his disciples. Are you a leader if you deny that a problem even exists, like Mitch McConnell has for like 6 years with climate change, or 20 years for Richmond's Army Depot? Let's be honest, Mitch followed what oil and coal executives told him to say and deny what that there was even a problem. Well, while was in the 2012 interagency webinar, I saw that we were going to no longer talk about hypothetical climate change, but instead actual today's weather nows of fire, flood, and freak, and said to start using this term instead of weather nows of fire, flood, and freak. Actions speak louder than words, and reality speaks louder than hype. Who acted like a leader? Synod leader Mitch McConnell or nobody Rory Houlihan? This brings us to the third principle of leadership. 5. He, Jesus, saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread, that these may eat? Leaders know that many hands little work, few hands much, and seek immediately to create a team effort to solve a problem. The solution is always in the team and in the multitude. Verse 6. And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. I don't know what today's value is exactly, the amount accounting for inflation, but a lot of money was needed to get just enough to feed a little. Think 20 slices per loaf and divide into 5,000. That is at least 250 loaves just if each person gets one piece of bread. And say $2.50 a loaf, that would be $650. So quite a bit is a good answer. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, There's a lad here, with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes. But what are they among so many? Now comes the next principle of a leader. Leaders become leaders because they take point. The first reason is that leaders see the problem first. Being the first, they are the first to react and the first to be working on a solution, often well before the followers even know there is a problem. So, leaders are the first to know what to do to solve the problem. We see Jesus ask a rhetorical question. He saith unto Philip, Whence shall we buy bread, that these may eat? And followed, this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Again, a rhetorical question. He knows what he needs to do. The next principle of a leader is that leaders follow and do. I repeat, follow and do. The path of great and noble, and not the path of small and selfish. Because Jesus could have very easily done of the small and selfish when the multitude was coming. And Andrew said, There's a lad here with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes, but what are they among so many? Jesus could have taken it easy and said, Great, we have just enough for ourselves, let's sit and eat. But Jesus did instead make the men sit down. Now, there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down in the number of 5,000. You might reference again Mark 6:39 and Matthew 14:21. First, he got his team working on the solution. Make the men sit down. All acts of faith start with an act of obedience. So, 5,000 folks obeyed Jesus' command to sit down because they had faith in Jesus. That is, the 5,000 folks trusted and had confidence in Jesus. We trust, obey, and follow a leader who is following a great and noble cause or path because we trust and have confidence, faith in that their goal is good and their intentions are good for our good. Would the feeding of 5,000 be great? And could you also include noble? I'm running for office as an act of obedience, faith to a calling. When I was young, I didn't understand or believe those who said they were called to serve. Older, I now know. How many of our soldiers have told you they were called to serve after 9/11? A bunch. How many of our priests and ministers have said they were following a calling? Most. Well, I also see a bunch of never thought they would runs, Democratic candidates in 2018 following a calling to run for office and become part of a solution to our ticking time bombs and put our country and this world on a path of a bright new day instead of all things ending. Some succeeded, some did not. Well, when I met fellow candidates during my run for office in 2016 and 2018, my faith in our system was confirmed as I saw school teachers, police officers, former soldiers, young folks, all regular folks running, myself including. All were following a calling to serve and stepping up to take point. Take on our problems, take out those who created our problems. Few realized in doing so they were putting our Kentucky and our country on a road to heaven. Many of these new candidates were excited when I made the "A Road to Heaven" statement. Many Democrats are Christians too. We go to church. We have far too long handed over moral authority to conservative conmen who have used Jesus and the abortion issue as an ambush con to their own ends. Conservative conmen claim to be 100%ers, but are in fact they are only 2%ers because they don't support, but instead demonize those who make a pro-life decision, like me. I worked 3 jobs to support our pro-life decision, and I know that from birth to death is where the rubber meets the road. You have to support that life. I've walked the walk, so I clearly see that if you're not a pro-life from birth to death, that you are not pro-life for like 98% of one's life. So claiming to be 100%er pro-life is a con. They narrow to take. They have you look at the 2%, this is 100%, instead of taking a look at the whole life and being a whole life 100%er. I believe in the amplification of good, but that also means I believe in the amplification of evil too. I have raised chickens, and as a farmer, I know I can only help animals that obey and have faith in me. Those that run from me, I cannot help. Wild animals must be tranquilized, knocked out, for us to work on them. Could Jesus pass out the bread and fishes to the crowd if they were standing around? Could the disciples know who was given food and those who had not been given? If folks were moving around, understand miracles, great and noble deeds cannot occur if we are disobedient. The answer to today's weather nows of fire, flood, and freak require that our masses work together to solve the problem of climate change. But those who deny climate change, while the weather nows of fire, flood, and freak become ever so more deadly, like Mitch McConnell, only undermine masses working together, keeping the masses from working together and us on an apocalyptic path. Staying on this apocalyptic path is going to kill folks and destroy our communities. Leaders see the truth first, often before the proof can be compiled. Leaders see where the path is going first. Leaders are the first to look at the problem. Leaders are the first to work on the problem. Leaders are the first to come to conclusions. Leaders are the first to know what to do, so they naturally take point, take on, take out, take care of. We need to amplify good. Only through masses acting can climate change be solved. The solution is masses with money. So the masses have the money to make the changes. So the masses can change the path that we are on. Again, solving the threat of weather nows of fire, flood, and freak require us to be obedient. For those many hands to little work, to while a few hands much, much will be too much because of the scale. But what do conservatives like Mitch McConnell say and do? They say there's no such thing as climate change and government can't do anything. Let's be honest. Conservatives like Mitch McConnell won't do anything to save you, your kids, and your grandkids. I have plans to do save you, and it would even produce an income stream for Kentucky's government, something to lower your taxes or give you more for less. Read my posts and to find out. Looking at today's impeachment events, we need to realize that most democratic governments have a way to remove leaders who are, by their actions, unfit or have betrayed the faith of their people from office before they can betray the people and the institutions more. Parliamentary governments like UK have a vote of no confidence and immediately new elections are scheduled. Here, our Constitution doesn't a no confidence vote by an impeachment and trial for high crimes and misdemeanors. One must, by their actions, betray and subvert our U.S. Constitution and our democratic system. Let us continue. 11. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and his disciples to them that were set down, and likewise the fishes, as much as they would eat. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, gather up the fragments that may remain, and that nothing be lost. There they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that which the people have eaten. Then those men, when they had seen the miracle that Jesus did, said, this is a truth, that prophet that should come into the world. Now, was Jesus' action great and noble or small and selfish? Great and noble, right? Now, Jesus gives thanks to whom? Is Jesus thanking? God the Father. Also gave Jesus time to perform the miracle. Do you think miracles take time to happen? Do you think we will need time to do the miracle of turning our weather nows of fire, flood, and freak around? Time is not on our side, folks. We need to hire folks who know this, like me. Now comes the we. As Jesus' disciples handed out the bread and the fishes out, then we collected the leftover bread and fishes. And guess what? When the we were done collecting up the leftovers, 12 baskets were filled. Would the multiplicity of good make what happened even greater and more noble? This is the end of Rory Houlihan's The Rest of the Story, Part 4A of 2020, John's Jesus' Principles of Leadership. If you like what you hear, would you do me a favor and subscribe to my Rory for Us YouTube.com channel? You have a good and blessed day, folks.